Hey, welcome to Beyond Organic Wine. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Adam Huss, author of Wine Liberated, The Ecological Revolution and the Vintner's Inspiring Change, published by Chelsea Green, available now for pre-order and releasing this November. Wine Liberated is about reclaiming the freedom to imagine and grow wine as part of a connected community of life. Wine Liberated was inspired and informed by the 7 years of producing this podcast so far. The Beyond Organic Wine Substack is a huge library of amazing information, inspiration, hope, and examples of how wine can be done ecologically, with a Beyond Organic approach that re-envisions wine as one member of the whole interconnected exchange that makes wine and our lives possible. Please dig into the Beyond Organic Wine library. Scroll through the last 7 years and just listen to anything that pops out to you. If you have questions about anything related to growing and making wine, and especially growing it and making it in a regenerative, holistic, and sustainable way, grounded in science and focused on whole systems ecological approaches. The entire 7 years of this library has been entirely listener supported. Even the occasional sponsors of this podcast were first listeners. This podcast is 100% made by humans and the more than human living community that make up the real world where we and plants partner and grow together. If you want more of this kind of content in the world, if you want a world shaped by this kind of content and want to support Beyond Organic Wine, please subscribe at beyondorganicwine.substack.com. There's no paywall for this episode because I think the information is so urgent for everyone to hear. And these kinds of free episodes are only possible because of the few amazing humans who contribute and support Beyond Organic Wine. A huge thank you to you from all of us who continue to learn and grow with your help. This is a special episode that I consider a PSA to the global wine community. And because of its importance, I brought in a special guest. Chuck Norris is from Oklahoma. Brad Pitt is from Oklahoma. And you know who else is from Oklahoma? My guest for this episode. One of the many gifts that Oklahoma has given the world. The love child of Chuck Norris and Brad Pitt, Drew Herman. Drew Herman himself. If you don't know Drew Herman, you're in for a treat. Drew is as entertaining as he is knowledgeable about viticulture. This is Drew's third time on the podcast on Beyond Organic Wine, and you'll see why. The objective of this episode is to get vital information out to wine growers everywhere about Pierce's disease, or Xylella fastidiosa, which we might call PD or XF throughout this episode. This isn't a new concern for many wine growers, but it has recently hit the news in a way that has whipped up a frenzy of new attention in California. And much of that attention is misguided and will actually cause more harm and will incentivize the spread of Pierce's disease. So Drew and I recorded this conversation to serve as a resource for California especially, but also for the world, as Pierce's disease has been found in Europe over 10 years ago, and it will likely spread globally, just like everything else. And it can kill vineyards. If you haven't listened to it, I also recently released a short episode that I'll link to called Is Pierce's Disease the New Phylloxera? In this conversation with Drew, we do a comprehensive examination of the issues surrounding and related to Pierce's disease, and in doing so, we cover topics that apply to everything related to growing wine. We dig into bacteriophages, the difference between tolerance and resistance, how PDXF affects the vine and how the vine reacts to it, and what causes it and facilitates its spread, and why aren't our vines able to deal with it, and what about our vines, or the way that we grow them, makes them so sexy and attractive to sap-sucking insects. And the real reasons the news is vilifying quote-unquote immigrant bugs. We also find out how our nutritional mistakes and practices can help or harm plants and dial insect predation up and down, why sap analysis and foliar feeding are potentially especially important for vines on rootstock, which is, as you know, most wine grapes, why rootstock affects your wine pH, the importance of timing of nutrition, how trellising incentivizes vegetative growth and billables, and insect predation, the importance of sex, and the need to breed new grapes and crowdsource breeding, because this is bigger than institutions. We also reveal the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that is available for a brave California winery. Maybe it could be you. This is one of the coolest discussions in the history of wine to be inspired by a bacterial infection. Enjoy. Drew, welcome to Beyond Organic Wine for the third time. You are in. No one else has ever been on three times,
I
other
was
than me.
hoping you'd say that. I needed a win today so bad.
um, and I brought you in for the heavy hitter. This is like the hardcore stuff.
Good, good.
I so you have recently moved to California, and you're working in vineyards in the heart of what is now California, uh, fine wine country, we'll say, Sonoma, Napa. And what's the vibe like with regard to Pierce's disease, Xylella fastidiosa there?
Um, it's it, I would say it's pretty present, but like most people aren't really talking about it out loud. I know the county's taking it pretty seriously. Um, Obviously, the Costco debacle made national news,
Yeah.
um, which wasn't like the greatest press for Napa, but it's it's interesting to moving here at this time in the industry. We have a pretty down market, vineyards being ripped up everywhere due to red blotch, Pierce's disease, and it is kind of like moving to a war zone a little bit. But I would say generally people are in pretty good spirits, and it's Pierce's disease kind of it's just an extra spice in this recipe. It seems like.
Insult to injury, maybe.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I was surprised when I started doing the research, that I've shared with you, to find that like trials related to Xylella fastidiosa in Sonoma have been ongoing for years, like trials in terms of testing different management strategies and stuff like that. So it's there, like it's apparently present to a significant enough. Like I think the one thing that surprised me was the Lytton Springs vineyard that Ridge, where Ridge makes it's sort of one of its most famous Zinfandels,
Hmm.
has undergone a trial of this bacteriophage that is used to control it since starting in like 2014. I think the trial started and
Yeah.
went for several
And,
years.
and just for listeners, bacteriophages are viruses that infect bacteria and replicate themselves, and do a pretty good job of controlling unwelcome overpopulated bacterial growth. They look like a little bit like the things that attack the ships in the movie The Matrix. They actually look exactly like that. I
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's probably where they got the inspiration, to be honest.
think
I mean,
so.
most of these things come from nature. The and the way that it's administered is like an inoculation. You literally like there's like an injector that
Yeah.
that you get, and you stick it into your vine, literally.
Yeah,
And
it looks. I mean, from what I was reading about it and the research that's done on it, it seems to be somewhat successful and all isolated from nature, and a lot of it isolated from grapevines themselves. But they don't necessarily exist in healthy tissue. They only really exist where the overpopulation already is. So
right.
you have to inject it for it to work. There's no natural way of building. I tried everything, thinking like, how can you build this population up naturally, and it just doesn't work that way. You have to have a massively infected vineyard, and then you'll see it present on its own.
The bacteriophage, you mean?
Yeah,
Right. Like so you could so by the time it's there, it's too late. Your
yeah, pretty
vineyard
much.
is dead, basically. And I just want to establish a few other things. So it's been, I mean, it's endemic to California. So it's been in Southern California. I mean, some of the stories that I've heard are some of like the Los Angeles used to be the first center of like massive plantings of vinifera. You know, after post whatever like late 1800s. The Los Angeles city seal and county seal is like actually a big cluster of grapes, and all the names of streets downtown are like related to the usually the men who were, or the it's like there's Vineyard Street and all these things like that, and then the names of the men who owned all these vineyards around downtown. So there were just like thousands and thousands, I mean, millions and millions of gallons of wine were made down there. And a lot of those old vineyards throughout Southern California apparently aren't around, not just because of, I mean, a lot of them aren't around because there's a giant city there, but a lot of them disappeared where there aren't city areas because of Pierce's disease, a lot of the old vineyards. And so, like where I used to source grapes, really has been around for 100 years, mainly because it's in a really arid area that, it's dry farm, but it gets a lot of its water just from groundwater, like from, the roots tapping an aquifer that's not too far down.
Yeah, there's I mean, it is interesting how we are treating it like it's this new invasive disease, because like genetically, like you can see different clades of it. Like it's been here for thousands of years
Right.
on this side, maybe not as far north. I think that has to do with maybe shifting climate, up this way. It's a little warmer, even if it's just a few degrees every day over the year, that's warm enough. There's less winter kill. But
Right.
yeah, like the research that has been done by what is it, like University of South Carolina, Texas A&M especially,
Yeah.
looking into just like the genetics of xylella and the genes that come up in the grapevines that develop some sort of resistance to it, or tolerance. And I think those are two very different things. And
Right.
it's
Yeah.
interesting, this stuff on the California side of the Sierra Madres, like has actual resistance to it, where the stuff on the east side is just tolerant of it. And that has a lot to do with the climate: more humidity, more water, more fresh green tissue.
So they can sort of be more vigorous, in other words, and
Right. They
build
can they
around
can
it.
grow past it.
Yeah.
Where Arizonica and other varietals from Southern California, they are pretty good at just preventing biofilm formation within the cell tissue. So we should probably talk about uh, how Pierce disease affects a vine. Um,
Yeah. Oh, great idea. It's a circulatory issue, right?
yeah, it's a plumbing issue. So what happens is it's the bacteria get into the xylem, and that's where the name Xylella, which sounds like a mean ex-girlfriend. Uh,
Xylella Deville.
yeah. So it gets in the xylem, and it just builds a biofilm within it, and it slowly feeds on that very nutrient poor sap going by. And the vine usually doesn't mind if it's in small numbers, but when it gets big enough that it starts causing plumbing issues, the vine will react, and it will do a couple things. The first thing it does, which grapevines usually do when they're under attack by any pest, is they'll try to thicken cell walls and just try to make it harder for things to enter. Um, and we should go back and talk about how nutrition is related to this later. But so
Well, yeah. I mean, that's one of the potential things that you can do to help your plant, for
yeah,
sure.
there,
In
there's
terms,
there's you can't like nutrition your way out of it, but you could eat less Cheetos and be healthier a little longer.
right.
Um, but so what the vine does is it sees the not sees, but we'll just use the word sees. It sees that bacteria in there, and what it'll do is it'll use calcium to basically close off that long cell within the xylem where the bacteria is, and try to isolate it. And then it'll also try to hide all of the iron that it has available in its sap. That'll like lock it up in vacuoles or other cells within the plant to try to keep it from the bacteria. Bacteria really need iron to
Mm.
survive. So it'll try these things, lock everything away, shut those cells down. And what happens with a really bad infection is the plant will literally girdle itself by shutting down all of these passageways until it has, no open flow. Um,
Mm.
so it's not necessarily it's a mixture of the bacteria clogging the cells, but it's also the systemic response that the plant has that
So-
sort of shuts that down. That's why those tolerant species that are constantly building new tissue, that's why they have that tolerance, is because they are rapidly building tissue and shutting down old channels
So they can
where
wall it off while they're
they,
also building
exactly, they
new
can
options.
compartmentalize the damage. Um,
That's it. That is a really great. Thanks for explaining that, because that is an important distinction.
but yeah, so I guess we might as well get into the nutrition of it. Well, and I'll talk about
Well,
the
let me let me set it up a little bit
okay.
more, that just that it's not only endemic to Southern California, it's endemic to like the entire southern United States. It's way more prevalent actually in the South and Southeast United States, Texas, and basically from Texas to Georgia and up through to Virginia is just I mean, it is, you can't grow grapes there that don't have at least tolerance, basically, unless you're using I mean, unless you're doing some really bad ecological things, and we'll get into that. But um,
It's also
yeah,
in
I mean,
Costa Rica
it's
too, where
just
xylella.
commercially non-viable. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying it's also in Costa Rica too, where they think
Oh
that
yeah, and I was going to say, and then it goes south. It's like through Mexico all the way down, because it's just, why wouldn't it? It's loves, as long as it's got moisture and that those mild winters, which they just get milder the further south you go. I mean, some of the Mexican species are some of the most, some of those right near the Mexican Texas border have been studied, have some of the most resistance to
Mhm.
xylella that have been found of the vita species. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, yeah, it gets even better the further south you go,
Yeah,
because it
well, I
must
mean,
be insane down there.
Costa Rica was, part of Texas. That whole area, it kind of split off a long time ago, but that's how
I mean,
old this
you mean
river is
geologic time?
geologically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was like, what?
it's still a territory,
I mean, I
but
knew Texas
they
had
think
some
that
big
there's some
ambitions.
people that believe that's where it might have originated, the xylella. But
Oh,
there's
yeah.
grapevines there, but who knows?
Yeah,
Um,
and just to globalize this further, Pierce's disease has been found in Italy. It was as of 2013. I think like anything nowadays, because we live in such a globalized world, like it's almost impossible. I mean, again, Europe, you're welcome. We introduced another like total vineyard destroying plague to your shores, that came from here. And the real issue, I think, with that is it's not limited to grapevines, and some of the things that it is infecting, like olive trees, there aren't species that have any resistance or tolerance to it. So there's a future potentially where there isn't olive oil anymore because of Xylella fastidiosa.
well, as on behalf of all Americans, you're welcome, world.
Exactly right.
Well,
um
what's interesting is, we talk about it's this funny thing that big ag does, but and also universities is we're really focused on sharpshooters as the vector.
that was the other thing I was going to say. This is not a sharpshooter issue.
The whole family can spread it. Anything that looks like a cicada,
Yeah,
leafhopper, sharpshooters, all of those things, they can all potentially spread it.
I mean, we
Um,
should say that. I mean, this
Billables.
is that, like, so that gets into, I think, the real reason why I think it's so important to understand it and to talk about it is like what's happening right now that I see, and you can totally disagree with me about this, but I see huge monocultural conventional growers who already have basically nuked their soil. Like if anybody gets a chance to drive through California Central Valley, and once, like, I mean, assuming this kind of agriculture will be able to exist for much longer, which I doubt it will, but um, it's like you drive through groves of grapes and citrus and almonds and pistachios where there is no other plant, and it's miles and miles of just that plant with bare dirt underneath that has been completely nuked by herbicides. And that's and those growers are the ones that I think are petitioning for money to help manage Pierce's disease, because what they see is an opportunity to just get their herbicide and pesticide costs covered, because that's how they're going to manage it. They're going to say, this is a problem of an invasive species of a glassy wing sharpshooter, and we need to get rid of it. We need to be able to have emergency pesticide allowances, and we need to be able to remove the habitat where it breeds. So we got to nuke all the green plants besides our cash crop. and the government should pay for that because this is an emergency and will affect our economy drastically.
Yeah,
And I have a huge problem with all of that.
there seems to be a tendency to single out a bad guy, and
Right.
somebody comes out looking like the hero, but when it's a complex problem, it's we're talking about a bug.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yes, that bug is the problem, but we're seeing the exact same thing happen with red blotch in Napa Valley, where everybody is obsessed with tika, the
The
tricorner
tricornered
leaf hopper.
alfalfa hopper, yeah, or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
and
That's
what's really funny about it is that people are like, "Oh yeah, we got to get rid of all legumes and cover crops, and we got to kill this bug," but we don't even know for sure that that's the vector. You know,
huh. Wow.
we've seen in a few trials that it was the vector, but in field trials, I don't think. I could be wrong. I hope somebody listens to this and says no, he's wrong. But as far as I know, it's mostly greenhouse studies where they've seen transmission. And so, yes, tricorner leafhopper, you can probably run it through qPCR and find red blotch virus in it, but I would be surprised if plenty of other sap sucking insects don't transmit it as well. And I don't
And
know. I always try to think like, okay, so we want to make insects the monsters, but there's other questions we should be asking, like, why are these plants so attractive and sexy? Why can't the plants fight it off on their own? And
yeah,
I think those
great
are the
questions.
questions that should be asked, but rather than just like buying the biggest gun on the market, you should try to figure out some of those basics first.
Those are great questions. And I mean, here's a question for you. I all I see in the press is talk about the glassy wing sharpshooter, right? And they can talk about it as quote unquote invasive because it's not, quote unquote native to California. It's like from the southeast United States. But and I'm wondering if that's why they're focusing on it because they can paint it as an outsider. It's like an immigrant
Yeah,
insect basically
yeah,
because we already
taking your
have
job.
multiple other species of sharpshooters that are native to California that also transmit Pierce's disease that nobody's talking about. I'm like,
You know,
wait,
I
why are we
didn't
picking
think this.
on the immigrant?
I don't
Like
know.
it's
We
like
have
what?
spittlebugs everywhere here, and they're known vectors of Pierce's disease, and nobody's like
Yeah,
get rid of the spittlebugs. You know,
right.
like
Yep.
it's there's it is a little, but what it does is it makes people just like spray to kill all bugs.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm saying. And they just want the government to pay for that because they're going to do it anyway. And why don't we just do it for free? If now that we can use this emergency, quote unquote, emergency that we created by having a maladapted monoculture, which again, we can get into that.
Have
But
you seen the road signs around Napa?
no, what do they say?
It's like a 2D image of glassy wing sharpshooter,
Oh
and it
my
just
God.
says like beware, and they're like California Department of Transportation signs. They're everywhere.
Wow. It's like public enemy number one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wanted dead or alive.
And it's funny too
Jesus.
because like they're pretty small bugs,
Yeah.
and like I would say small enough that it'd be pretty easy to miss. So I understand that like we just got to make everybody aware mindset, but it's like yeah, nobody. If maybe farmers will see it, but like even my crew guys, like I'll be like, "Have you seen this insect?" And they're like, "No, bro. I mean, I saw some bugs." Like it's just it takes like you'd have to know what they look like, and you'd have to really want to be looking for them. I don't think that your random like backyard gardener is gonna call in but maybe I don't know what happened with Costco, who reported that.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you've heard about it, and then like when you see this weird thing when your vine starts growing in the spring and you're like, oh, that this bug is playing hide and seek with me, or there's like a little bump on the shoot that's playing hide and seek with me, and you're like, oh, it's a bug. And then you're like, oh wait, I've heard about something like this. Like that's the only thing I can think of because yeah, like they are really like they really do play hide and seek. Like they, if they see you coming, they dart to the other side of the chute. Like they're trying to not be seen by you
Oh
already.
yeah,
So
they're
it's
pretty
like,
evasive. We put out, I
yeah,
put out, yellow sticky cards,
uh huh,
uh, and we're farming like 33 ranches, and we have yellow sticky cards out in most of them. And then the county's been going around in
seeing,
areas where they've identified it, and they have their cards out too.
yeah,
And you know, we've been able to see them that way.
okay,
But honestly, walking in the vineyard, like they're they are pretty evasive and
yeah.
elusive.
Now,
And
if
go
you're in
ahead.
Texas, this in certain parts of Texas and the South, this is not true. Like every vine will be covered with them, and that's
Yeah.
why like their resistance is so much greater there. And you need, I mean, and we'll get into this too, but like why maybe some of our California like Davis bred things aren't actually as tough as they need to be. But I want to I want to answer your questions. I want you to answer your questions. Why are our wine crops so attractive and sexy to these bugs, and why don't our wine crops have any resistance to this
Well, I think
problem?
there's a, obviously we stopped breeding, so that's a huge one. Like we have no new genetics, and I think we've talked about this a million
You mean we
times.
stopped breeding grapes?
Yeah, we stopped breeding grapes, and so not in nature, right? Like if
Yeah.
there was resistance, like you're on the border of Texas and Mexico, and you're a wild grapevine, and if you don't die, you know like
Yep.
you're the last one standing, and you produce, it's like that. There's also a lot of hybridization happened between different species of native vines down there, and
Yep.
so there was just like a greater genome to pull from. We're here, we the only genes that we have are the ones that we cloned in, so we're never going to evolve past it.
Right.
And that's a major problem. Um, just
Yeah. Unless we start unless we start mixing up those genes a little bit. I mean,
yeah.
right. I mean, there's our native California vines, but I, ironically, we've never thought to use them to breed wine grapes, which is so strange to me. But whatever. They're I mean, Jordiana has some resistance, and I mean, and like Davis has used Arizonica, which obviously its main range is Arizona, but it's also you know there's like vines don't know borders, so it's also in Southern California. Um, so, and I don't know about Californica. I feel like it would be at this point, but I don't know. Do you know if Californica has
Well, in that
resistance?
study where they did whatever 19 species at A&M, I didn't see Californica listed. Maybe it's just one of those taxonomy things where they call it something else in that study.
I doubt
Um,
it. I mean, but maybe they just didn't even test it. Like that
I,
was my other
yeah,
thought.
I don't know if they tested it honestly.
Yeah.
But I know that some of the reason that people haven't used the native vines is they are difficult to hybridize, some of them, and difficult to breed. Um, but I
What do
do
you
know
mean?
there was a professor at Oregon State University that God, wish I could remember his name. He had a whole vineyard full of Californica that he had been farming, and when he retired, that was the only vines he had left. It was like a 3-acre Californica vineyard,
Where
and
was this?
it was in Southern Oregon.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
And,
again, it crosses the border there. So what happened to that?
well, he's recently passed. I'll try to remember his name. He was a really important professor for Oregon State viticulture.
Okay.
He was kind of the guy that came up with the perfect plant spacings, and even to his dying day, he was like, the best vineyard spacing is 7 by 10 in Oregon. And people were like, that's just like not economical. But he was talking about from a disease standpoint. He found
Yeah.
that at that spacing, you got far less disease, far less drought um, incidents, and and good yield. And he was also really into Californica and native vines. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's people that have, and he was actively breeding Californica. So
Okay,
it
cool.
wasn't. So he was just trying to come up with
But he
like
was in Oregon.
he had a name for it. It was something noir. It was like the local tribe to where he was. It was
Oh,
that name and then noir. And God, I'm so sorry. I got up really early to start a crew this morning, so my brain's dead.
I know the
But
feeling. Me too, but not to start a crew.
so there's the genetic problem, and then then there's like the nutrition problem. Though it's so funny because uh, we have a tendency in agriculture to do something horrendous for way too long and then pull back entirely on things and make it illegal, or just like really frown. And one of the funny ones is like one of the main ways that plants prevent biofilm formation within their xylem is copper and zinc. And
That's
and it's a really necessary mineral for plant growth and for enzyme production and protein synthesis. It's super Copper is super important to plants. And every vine I test on vineyards now is like completely deficient in copper. And you'll
that's
tell somebody, well,
hilarious.
I'd like to apply a little bit of copper, and I'm talking like a few grams an acre, and they're
Yeah.
like, no, we've been copper free since 1993. And I'm like, no, that's good for you, that's so cool, except I'm not talking about 3 to 10 pounds an acre of copper. I'm talking about 20 grams. Like
Right.
your vines desperately need copper,
Yeah.
um, and or they desperately need zinc. The problem is your vines don't need nearly as much as the agronomist will have you apply, or they'll have you apply something like an organic. You can use like Badge X2 or things that aren't necessarily bioavailable, right? They work really well as a fungicide, but they're not necessarily like usable by the plant. But the company says, oh, that's not true. It also works as a foliar feed. So then, like, if you do sap analysis after using one of these heavy copper products, your copper levels are like through the roof, to the
Huh.
point where you could have uh, inhibited root growth and things like that. And it's the same thing with zinc. Zinc is like super necessary. I mean, it's necessary for us too, right? Like
Right.
if you had a cold coming on that was like, and you're coughing up some chunky phlegm, you might take some zinc because it works. But you wouldn't like drink a 2 liter of zinc sulfate, like
Yeah.
you would
Right.
just like low dose it.
Right.
So I think that's one of the major problems is we've decided that there's certain minerals that are evil, uh,
Right.
which those are like those two are the best. And then there's another thing that's really interesting is you'll see this, like it looks like iron chlorosis and Pierce's disease, going back to Pierce's disease, where you like if you're low on iron, which mines can be, um, especially in droughty areas, you'll see the grape leaves turn like white or super pale yellow. People have a
Oh,
tendency to hit it with nitrogen
right.
to green it up, and that causes all sorts of issues.
Right. It's like
Increased
ringing the
disease
dinner bell, right?
pressure throws you
Yeah.
back into vegetative state, like all of these. But and then some growers know, what greens it up faster is probably going to be a little zinc and iron, and so they'll do zinc and iron, and then chlorophyll production will return back to normal because those two are critical elements for that. But the problem with adding iron to a Pierce disease plant that is obviously iron chlorotic is it's iron chlorotic because the plant is not letting iron be available so that it can kill the bacteria. And if you spray iron on the plant, you just feed the bacteria, and you like quicken the death of the vine. So
You have
I
to
think,
understand what's
yeah,
going on nutritionally,
you have
or
to
else you're
understand what's
going to do
going
more
on.
harm than good. Yeah. Now,
Exactly. And then
what is?
calcium. Calcium's the other one. The only other thing is like you want
Oh yeah, yeah.
vegetative growth that is healthy and doesn't compete with your reproductive cycle. Calcium, and it also is. It's the main mineral involved in cell expansion and cell wall thickening, and so rather than treating an already diseased plant with it, like calcium throughout the season in a foliar spray. I like calcium acetate, which is basically just calcium and vinegar mixed
Uh-huh.
together.
Yep.
Um, it's that's gonna be the best bang for your buck, just to have a thicker cell wall, and that makes it much harder for sharpshooters to even pierce the cuticle layer of the plant. And so
Right.
that's kind of my approach nutritionally, would be like toughen that plant up from the very beginning, make it hard to eat, undesirable, maybe use
Mm-hmm.
some saponins to make it taste like shit too. And then
Mm.
that's a better path forward. And I'm not saying you can uh, make pierce disease proof plants, but you can certainly make it a lot harder for it to take hold.
Now, I want to ask about two other things. So like we our hemoglobin runs on iron, right, in the human body. What
Hmm.
does chlorophyll run on? Isn't it magnesium?
Well, magnesium is involved, but also iron. They're both so they're both
Okay.
take on different charge levels and give off. They're like used like little batteries within the plant.
Okay. But I mean, like, I thought that like the iron was why hemoglobin was red, and the magnesium was why chlorophyll was green, or something.
There's so magnesium and iron are both extremely important in photosynthesis.
Right. Right. I'm not not trying to isolate one as
No,
the
no,
star,
no.
but
They do different things, but
okay.
they're both extremely important.
Okay. Anyway, cool. That's not that important, but I heard about boron as a potential nutritional supplement that would help a plant ward off or work around Pierce's disease. Do you know why that would be?
Um, so I was reading about this because there's, calcium, boron, cobalt. Those are like the three um, minerals people recommend for any sort of bug infestation, right? Um, the
Ah,
problem with cobalt and Pierce's disease is cobalt tends to accumulate to the point where it's toxic to the plant,
okay.
and boron is used in a host of obviously cell expansion, pollen tube formation, but also a necessary mineral for enzyme production for even like lysis, like breaking down bacterial walls.
Okay.
So I mean, it's used a lot of places in the plant, but like I feel like I read something about it, but right now I don't remember. I'm not going to pontificate.
Okay. Got it. Well, it's something I'll just footnote it here so that anybody who wants to dig in can, because I've heard that. But like you said, nutrition only gets you so far. Like it might get you pretty far in California, where you know the XFPD pressure is mild to moderate at best, and yet if you put those same plants in Texas with the same nutrition or even better nutrition in certain areas of Texas, East Texas, they're just going to die. Like there's no overcoming the amount of like like 30 sharpshooters on a vine kind of pressure
Right,
that they
but then
have
we
there.
should ask, why are there 30 sharpshooters on that vine? And
Yeah. So
and
why do you think that is?
well, so there's lots of people that have studied this, and it's pretty easy to look up. But um, some of the things that we put out on the vineyards are they can be byproducts of pool chemical industry, and it's a really they got to do something with it, so they'll sell it off to an agronomy company who bottles it and uses it. Like one of my favorite ones is calcium chloride. um, is is a leftover byproduct that we put out as a calcium supplement in vineyards. The problem with chloride is that it causes, it's necessary for vegetative growth in the plant to a point,
Uh-huh.
but at a certain level, it starts causing osmotic stress. And vines that have higher levels of chlorides in them, this is just chlorides. There's plenty of other things that are, if they're out of balance, they can cause osmotic stress. Sodium, obviously. Um, if you have osmotic stress in the plant already, what that results in is a thinner, more pierceable leaf tissue. And plants are not plants, but bugs can sense that in a plant. They'll fly around. You'll watch them hop around from leaf to leaf to leaf to leaf. And then why do they stop? they stop because they're not just randomly hopping, they're hunting for the right spot to hit. And once they hit on a leaf and they're like, oh yeah, this is a gusher, they'll feed there. And that has a lot to do with osmotic stress within the plant. So, you know, who has the most soft tissue? Extremely vigorous vines that are like stuck in a vegetative state,
Yeah.
they have tons of thin tissue, super easy to feed on, right? The other ones are ones that are experiencing drought stress after extreme vegetative growth. So they
Yep.
had all that, they're really weak. You don't necessarily see as much predation by anything on just like super miserable, struggling vines. And I think that's because they already have pretty thick skin, but also there's just not much buildup of anything. Like that, I think you've read it, the Charbonneau book, Healthy Crops,
Yeah. It's
where
old.
he studied the buildup of like amino acids and different sort of things in within cell tissue, and correlated it to disease pressure. And he found out that a lot of it was that the plant had everything it needed to make amino acids or make these protein complexes or carbohydrates, reducing sugars, but they didn't have the necessary minerals to break those down into usable forms in the plant, so they would build up in the tissue. And they noticed this mostly after the first commercial grafts hit Europe. They were dealing with all these disease issues, bug predation, mildew that they had never seen before, and it was because the rootstock was taking up a different diet than what the vinifera on top needed to break these
Right.
proteins down.
Right.
And so I think as a grower, it's pretty important to know what's actually happening in your plant. PDL is a pretty rudimentary way to deal with it. There's sap analysis, tissue, analysis. There's plenty of ways to go about it, but it's important to know it's actually happening in your vine, because if the vinifera is showing a deficiency, it has more to do with that rootstock matching necessarily than the soil. A lot of times you can try to fix it in the soil and it does some effect, but as far as micronutrients go, foliar is so much easier to get that nutrition into the plant. It's just a little harder with your NPKs.
I don't know if you. I mean, so that like the thing I want to underline there, first of all, was just the idea of the importance of foliar to a vine that's growing on rootstock, because yeah, and that makes so much sense and so profound, and yet I've never heard that before. Like I've never that connection has never been made for me, and so I just want to underline that. I don't
Yeah,
know if you heard. I just had a really fun interview with Jordan Lonborg, and we talked all about foliar, and this is something that I think is good that I wish we had added in there too, because it makes so much sense. Because yeah, of course, we're working with crops that are growing on rootstock, and yeah, if you want to solve the like that rootstock, yeah, I mean there can be differences in what's happening between those two parts of the plant, and
yeah,
yeah, that's
we
so. If
run
you're
into
doing
this
soil
issue.
samples versus sap analysis, you might be reading the wrong thing, and then you might be correcting for the wrong thing, and then yeah, if you don't know what sap, and I'm not trying to sell sap analysis and foliar spray. I'm just saying if you are if you are growing vinifera, you're growing it on rootstock most likely,
Mostly.
and so hey, maybe you should start thinking really seriously about sap analysis and foliar feeding.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm a huge fan of sap analysis because you can just spray blindly, and that actually get you pretty far, and it has gotten people far for a long time. But it's a good way to cut inputs. Like
yeah,
I don't buy micronutrient blends really.
right,
I
right.
buy chelated micronutrients individually, and then I'll look at a sap analysis and dose that field, based on that. And a lot of times I'll be pulling out, half of the things that would be in that blend because they're already in pretty high numbers. Then you go and you apply it out there, and all of those things are kind of over range, out of limit, and everything else is just starting to reach the point because it takes more than one application to get into the plant, especially if you're not buffering the pH of your mix, which most people don't. They don't know that these nutrients, when they go out, they need to go out at a pH between like 5.5 and 6.5, and the water around here is like 7.2 to 7.6. So
Oh yeah.
it's can be difficult to get those things out. But
Huh.
the other thing I was going to talk about, this is somehow related to Pierce disease. I'll figure out a way to tie it in. Is the rootstock issue, and like magnesium, for instance, anything with like a 16 in the rootstock name or RG, they're really really good at scavenging potassium.
Uh-huh.
And if you're good at scavenging potassium, that kind of pushes magnesium out of the plant. And so
Uh-huh.
it doesn't matter if you hit the soil with magnesium, it's just not going to make its way in. So you have to foliar magnesium. And iron can be that way. Calcium can be that way with really heavy potassium feeders. And so if you're on a heavy potassium feeder rootstock, you need to be supplementing magnesium and calcium, because you'll have thin, shitty cell walls that are super easy to eat. And then when the grapes come in the winery, the winemakers will all complain because you have these crazy high potassium levels and their finished pH is 4.2. And and it has
Right.
more to do with rootstock than any of the other growing practices. It's just you're on a rootstock that wants potassium and the vinifera doesn't know what to do with it, so it dumps it into the grapes.
Right. That's fascinating. I mean, there was something else I was going to ask you about this too that wasn't related to to
I couldn't tie
Pierce's
it in. I
disease.
tried. There's no way.
But
I went
it is. I mean, oh god, what was I going to say about it was related. Oh, I know, it was just in terms of testing. I had this, I mean, okay. I'm I will say a couple things. Like, as much as I'm saying, like, hey, maybe think about foliar feeding and sap analysis, I'm also like, yes, I think testing is great. It's like great to know what's going on. But I'm also very resistant to this idea of like that we have to bring in inputs to make a plant healthy, and that essentially it's this, like, the plants are dependent upon us for their health. And I know that there's a fine line there. I'm not trying to say like total
No,
neglect
I'm
is the
not.
right path.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
It's
it's like, I mean,
we just put
there's
the legs on of somebody else, underneath us, and like, it's just that whole part. The grafting part is the serious issue. But I had Graham McDonald, who has McDonald Wines down here, and he makes a bunch of wines for other people. We're working on a little project, a vineyard together, and I was saying that I wanted to adjust something, and he said, well, I feel like those deficiencies are just as much a part of the terroir as anything else. And I was like, all right, cool, let's roll with that, because like that's definitely a better thought than buying
right.
things in.
Yeah, and like, to call them deficiencies, it's like, again, I feel like maybe there's a lot we don't know about soil biology, and maybe like focusing on that, like, I don't know, like just adding more diversity. Like, what kind of vineyard are you working with? First of all, let's cover the basics first. Like, if your soil is nuked and you're doing sap analysis and spraying with a bunch of stuff, maybe start by putting in like a really diverse cover crop, and
Yeah,
like,
that's
doing
the
the
easiest
basics
part.
first. As I just wanted to say that, like, it's like, hey, like, yeah, like, it's just another thing to buy unless you're thinking holistically about the whole vineyard.
Yeah,
So
when I'm thinking that way, when I'm thinking inputs, it's usually not necessarily on things that already have diverse cover crop. And
ah
so, like, at Alexandra, the vineyard in Oregon, we were pretty limited, like basically almost nothing. We used sheep shit and
yeah,
a
that's awesome.
24 species cover crop. That was the main input, and then a little
The sheep shit was
calcium.
fueled from the the grasses that were already there anyway, right?
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
so that we do a little bit of calcium, because calcium and, depending on where you are, potassium are two things that, like, unless you're have a ton of organic matter in your soil, you're going to struggle to get, and that takes years to build up. So those are the two things that I think can be important,
Yeah.
um, but also not necessary either. you know. Um,
Right.
like you can, there's plenty of people that have never fertilized their vineyards and they're making 100-point wines, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm talking more about like conversion because I'm now at Barber Vineyards in Napa, and we're managing lots of properties. And when they asked me to come on, they were really excited because they wanted a more organic approach to their vineyards. And um, some of these vineyards have historically been conventionally farmed, clean tilled, you know,
Great.
conventionally sprayed for 20 something years.
Okay. Got
And
it.
so you don't have the biodiversity to just rely on the
Right.
soil
Right.
right away, right?
Right.
But you can jumpstart that pretty
Yeah.
fast, through the use of inoculated covers or just this cool thing California has that I'm not used to. It's irrigation, I think they pronounce it.
Yeah, it is weird, right? So
So
you're fertigating for the
yeah,
first time?
so I can straight up just throw like complex mixes of
Biological
yeah,
and
biologicals like
nutritional mixes,
straight
yeah.
into the soil. And I'm definitely not a fertilizer feeder as much as I am a prebiotic feeder. Like
Uh-huh.
throw the food out there so that the
Right.
microbes can build themselves. That'll work a lot faster. And the fastest thing to build microbes is obviously permanent green cover.
Yeah.
So, but even in some of these soils, that cover crop has a hard time taking off because it's
Right.
like
Right.
it's been
Well,
sprayed.
here was the other question. I mean, what's remarkable about this is I don't know if I don't know if you did listen to that conversation with Jordy, but man, you guys, I mean, two people at who are talking at this level are really saying a lot of the same thing. So it's really exciting to hear that, first of all.
Well, good. I
But
like
also,
him.
yeah. But also, the importance of this to people who are considering converting from a conventional system to a regenerative organic system. And frankly, those are the people that I want to give as many resources to as I can that will help them and make them feel safe, because I think it's just like that's the change that I want to see. So I love that we're talking about this in the context of Pierce's disease. And before we leave this, my question is, and this is, I know this is the thing with sap analysis. It's like you're reading theoretically real time nutrition in the plant, and so the response, like by default, then is real time response. Like you mix up your, like, oh, I'm low in this, and so I add some of it. I I'm like, I'm curious if you also are taking like a long view, like, hey, let's look at this, like, how much do we really understand about like what's happening? I mean, if you take a bricks reading at 10 a.m. in the morning versus 10 o'clock at night versus noon, you're going to get three different readings. And I
Correct.
wonder if the same thing, I wonder if we're too quick to act sometimes, and that
So
we should look a little, like, even with sap analysis, take it as like, let's start keeping records. Let's do all the cool stuff. Now, obviously, if you're in conversion, what I'm talking about is more like you're in a vineyard that's an operating vineyard that you've done a lot of the basics, and now you're like just thinking about vine health. You're thinking about maximizing, like minimizing your inputs by maximizing the health of the vine. Um,
that also can maximize your disease pressure too.
if
Um,
you're what can if
if
you're
you
adding
if your fertilization can cause disease, and
right, right, right,
like it will cause disease. So when I'm looking at sap analysis, the problem with sap analysis is most of the companies that do it. I use there's some really good ones. I won't name them all, but I use somebody out of Oregon he's a friend of mine. Um, and the way that they send you the results, right, it's like color coded, red, green, yellow. So you got the danger color, you got the watch it color, and you got the good to go color. I hate that. I hate
yeah,
colors.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then you also have like bars with uh, deficient, good, medium, low, medium, high, all these things. And so what
yeah,
it does makes you feel like you need those things.
right, right,
What I'm looking for in the SAP analysis is things that are way too high and things that are like basically not showing up.
Right.
Because there's lots of in pot studies in greenhouses at varying levels of, if you feed this much and have this level in your plant, you get this yield. But in pot studies aren't in field studies. And um, vines do a pretty good job without fertilizer on their own. It's just that when you have a super limiting nutrient that is like also kind of rare and hard to source, for bacteria, like it's super specialized bacteria go after it, or it's just not present in your soil. Those are the things that I'm more likely to add,
Yeah. Yeah.
than things that like you're not going to increase in season.
Right.
So
Right.
like calcium is one of those where it's just
Right.
like it's pretty hard to increase that in season except through foliar.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I'm looking at for things that are just like non-existent that I know I need trace amounts of for just like necessary protein synthesis.
Right.
Um, but what will happen is I mean, I've obviously made this mistake, is you'll adjust the level of something, and what will happen is you have all this brand new unintended growth by changing this one trace micronutrient, and it was, just because the sap analysis said you're deficient, and it doesn't mean it was like seasonally appropriate growth, or
Right.
that it was necessarily going to make better wine. So a lot of it has to do with timing of application.
Right.
And so, I work for a vineyard management company now, so definitely a lot of people like just looking at the cogs, they want to push yield. But I also work with some really cool winemakers who yield isn't the most important thing to them.
Yeah.
Quality of fruit is,
Right.
and that's the most fun because you can take a vine that's, you know and just kind of like let it balance itself. That's the other thing is like a truly balanced vine, has this like pretty nice fruit load. The shoots go to the top of the wire, and like in my perfect world they would just stop there, right, and just like
Right.
shift to reproductive state. And you can shift things to reproductive state with foliar sprays too, and even slow down vegetative growth with the right timed foliar sprays. So sometimes it's not just about like having the healthiest plant possible. Like sometimes it's about like making the plant stop growing so crazy. You can fertilize to stop growth too.
Well, and this so I will say like this whole discussion about nutrition does I think fit within the PD discussion very well.
I
Like you
forget what we're
brought it
talking
up.
about.
Like yeah, I mean, like, because no, I mean, like it really does matter. Like when you, but it also, I mean, but also wine quality matters, and I think this is, the other side of that discussion is like you're not only like the health of that vine that will ultimately make it less attractive to sharpshooters and other, sapsuckers will also make the wine taste better. But I mean, theoretically, or at least give you the potential for it. But I also want to call you out because you said they'll grow to the top of the wire, and you're assuming that we all are growing in that trellis system, and I want to talk about like how that trellis system might be part of the problem too.
Oh, it's for sure it is. It's definitely part of the problem. I mean,
I
we're
mean, it's
most.
incentivizing vegetative growth, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it incentivizes billables,
Yeah.
is what it does.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if there's ever been a study of insect predation based on trellis type. Um,
That would be brilliant though. Shoo, we got to do that.
but like I would be, it's interesting driving by these like old flop vineyards, or just like it's cool in California. You see these like 150-year-old heritage vineyards that there's just no trellis system at all,
Right.
and they seem fairly clean. They're like evenly, like the way that their shoots go out, they're maximizing sunlight potential in some
Yep.
areas of the vine, and other areas they're like trying to have less. Like it's just interesting how they have the opportunity to self orient. And
Yeah.
yeah, the grapes I'm working on, they don't have that that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, in my conversation with Valentin Blattner, I mean, he's got like his whole, I mean, he's got a holistic approach. He's obviously breeding grapes that are resistant to stuff, and then on top of that, he's doing this high trellis system, like a high trellis cordon, and then just letting them hang. And so that balance that you're talking about is achieved much more easily because the vines are sending the right hormones to stop that vegetative growth much more quickly because they're feeling the droop, they're experiencing gravity differently than VSP systems. And so he's like, I think he said he's got vineyards that he can farm with 16 hours per hectare per year, and they're producing like huge amounts. Yeah, I mean, like super healthy, perfect, big yielding crops.
We have
Anyway,
one of our sites that we're farming has kind of like a higher wire like V flop on it, and
uh huh,
it's interesting. You know, I have spore traps out to measure powdery mildew spores at most of my sites, and this site looks like it would be a disaster. Right, all the fruit shaded.
uh huh,
Um, it doesn't look like there'd be good airflow, but when you walk underneath the canopy, the fruit is just like dangling out there, like it's already been, you know, uh,
cleaned up for
leaf
harvest.
pulled and shoot thinned, and it
Yeah,
looks so good. And it is the lowest numbers of all of our traps,
huh.
and it is so interesting to me. Just like anytime I see vines growing more naturally, it is just like such a healthier environment for the fruit. But
So yeah, so well, let's switch to the second part of this, which is just the genetics of the vines and how, like, what the future could hold. Because I know, like, we're talking about where we are and trying to make the best situation with the the crops that we're using for wine right now. But there is the potential that we don't have to use the same crops forever, and we can actually have crops with resistance.
yeah,
Um,
resistance to PD specifically is
right,
an interesting one because there's, like we talked earlier, there's a whole bunch of genes on chromosome 14 that make them grow real fast and outgrow it. We don't have that climate in California,
right.
um, and there's the other ones that just make you like completely resistant to bacterial film formation, and also located on similar genes, if I remember right. Um, and breeding for those is interesting too, because you hope that you get the necessary part of them when you breed. And so we've
Right.
identified this like loci, this like area on this chromosome where we know the resistance probably is, but that's like also kind of a pretty massive assumption, that that's the only part that matters. So um, it'd be interesting to see, in these more breeding trials, plants can do cool things like polyploidy, tetraploidy, all these things. Like we can pretty much cram as many genes in there as we want, um, without the species dying. Like if you doubled your chromosome, you would probably die, right? Um, but plants just keep being a plant after you do that. Sometimes they double flower, or you get all sorts of cool things. But I have a feeling that when we're selecting for this Pierce disease resistance, that we might not be capturing the whole picture with the gene, especially because of how bad the Pierce disease resistant stuff failed in Texas.
Yeah, well, we should mention that. So, I mean, and what we're talking about here is like Vitis vinifera didn't evolve with this disease, and so it just isn't going. It's not going to have any of those alleles. It's not going to have any of those expressions in the genetics, and so it just can't. It can't handle the the disease. It will die ultimately, and it is pretty inexorable. I mean, once it gets into a vineyard, it will spread, and as long as you have, like as long as I mean, it will spread as long as sharpshooters are there and or other sap sucking things that will pierce the shoots, because it'll just go from vine to vine as they eat and transmit and go on. But there are dozens, I think, species of grapes that have some level of resistance. Maybe dozens is an exaggeration, but there are quite a few, um, that did evolve here in North America. And you just brought up, what was the last thing you just said about the, what am I thinking of?
I'd help you, but I forgot to.
Oh, I'll cut this out. Cut back in when we say something brilliant. At the end. Um,
You should leave all of that.
um, the
I think we were
anyway.
talking about. I think I was talking about how I'm not sure that we really captured the whole.
Oh, the
Yeah,
study that. So okay, so the Walker hybrids, which are these sort of well-known things because they're the only things that have been done with Pierce's disease in terms of breeding by Davis. Andy Walker, they're named after him. They all have these sort of cute, words that mean walking in different languages as their names, like Caminante Blanc and Ambulo Blanc and whatever, Passeante Noir and that kind of thing. They were all bred for Pierce's disease resistance. And that's it, like just Pierce's disease resistance. And then they back crossed those grapes many times so that they could be in the case of the Walker hybrids, 97% vinifera genetics with just 3% from rupestris and Arizonica. And the
so they would taste
rupestris,
like vinifera.
yeah, exactly. And they taste great. I mean, they taste like the familiar flavors that people who love vinifera would appreciate and enjoy, without any like need to translate or adapt to new flavors or just open their minds at all. So they're lovely in that sense in terms of making people feel comfortable about the flavors of their grapes that they're going to have. The problem is, and they've been released as these like saviors of Pierce's disease, and they are being grown in Pierce's disease prone areas by like Camus and the Ojai Vineyard, and other places around California have planted them. Temecula has a few, and they took them to Texas recently and did a study, and all of them failed. All of them succumbed to the Pierce's disease pressure and got Pierce's disease there. And it could be for many reasons. Could be that Pierce's disease pressure is higher there, which it most certainly is. It could be that there's a different strain of Xylella fastidiosa there that just was never this genetics were never exposed to. It's an Arizonica genetics.
Yeah, I would say environmental maladaptation. I mean, you're talking about Arizonica and then throwing it in Florida and Texas. It's just like a much more humid.
Well, it just makes me think like we should be breeding there and then moving it here. Like, I mean, if something can, especially because we might get some other resistances like powder. I mean, we could breed for other resistances, and now they're the new.
But then it would be a Texas
program.
A&M release and not a Davis release.
Exactly, exactly. Right. I mean, that's the problem with. And this is like I mentioned to you, I have this desire to start a breeding program in California that actually is breeding California grapes from the California native genetics of Californica and Jordiana and Arizonica. And the problem with that is like it's too easy to grow in California, and so you wouldn't. And I mean, like you could, depending if you pick the right area, end up with resistances to a few things. But you might, like if you took it anywhere besides California, it might just not do very well because it's too easy here. It's like bringing in Marquette from Minnesota, like it's like a super grape here. You know what I mean?
Oh
And
yeah,
I say here,
it's hilarious here. It just like nothing's gonna kill it, but it
yeah,
is gonna bud out in like January.
which is amazing. Unless I mean, so actually, I'm doing, I'm going to be doing an episode with somebody from Texas A&M who is actually looking at that. And I think there are a lot of really cool solutions, especially for California, when you bring in like rapid ripening, like cold season grapes like that, because you could be off the vine in July and you're avoiding the crazy heat spikes that are certainly coming, have already come. you are avoiding the crush for labor and equipment use and stuff like that that happens in September. And like you're
You're
avoiding
also avoiding glycemine
fire
shark.
weather.
Yeah.
Oh, you're avoiding
Like there,
sharpshoot.
there are a lot of those things are like in nymph stage or just now like reaching adulthood. June,
Oh,
and
really?
July, and so like
Huh.
the easiest PD to get rid of is the stuff that you get late season. Um,
Oh, that's
but
really interesting.
usually
Okay.
there needs to be some overwintering or at least just aggressive pruning, which
You're,
those varietals can handle pretty aggressive pruning.
I mean, and you could be in barrel before fire season is the other thing
Oh yeah,
too. So
you mean today?
yeah, right, right. I mean, well, traditional fire season, which I'm sure is now just year round.
It's just
Uh,
all.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, there's other. I mean, that's I think a good way. Like dealing with it as a temporal strategy is not something that anybody's ever considered. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I just saw that now the past couple of years because like, that's what happened with my Marquette in Los Angeles, and I know Los Angeles is slightly different than Napa, but I just saw the potential. I was like, but that it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be possible in Napa. I mean, it probably it's like I mean, I literally had shoots with little flowers on them in January. No joke. I actually had to prune it back to get it to like not go through veraison until April.
that's
Um,
but that
so
I mean
yeah,
that varietal was bred to take to be fruitful on its like secondary and tertiary buds. Like it'll
yeah. So yeah, even if it does bud out super early, like and you have a California frost, like maybe you'd lose a few primary, but you still, I mean, that thing is very vigorous as well. And so I mean, that again, I'm not trying to like promote Marquette. Like I think just the idea that these kind of genetics and these kind of potentials are possible when we start thinking out of the box a little bit in terms of the genetics that we're using for our wine crops. But also, that applies directly to Pierce's disease, which is, there like there are unfortunately not a ton of wine grapes that have been bred for Pierce's disease. More fruit grapes have been bred for them because I think what I was about to jump into was just how I think culturally the South, because it's not a drinking culture, like, or it's like it's more of a, yeah, I don't know, alcohol is bad culture, or has been, because it's a Baptist culture kind of thing. Like they focused more on eating grapes. I mean, Texas is a drinking culture, so I don't know what's going on there, but uh, not as many wine grapes have been bred. And
well they have
I
no
could
love. They have no love for their wine grapes.
Well, that's
But
true. I mean, muscadines, there's like 150 different varieties of muscadines, and most of those are PD resistant, I think. I mean, rotundifolia is one of the main genetics that they use for resistance. Estevelis is another one, Cinerea, and then the Texas grapes, Monticola, what is it? Just Berlandieri?
Galandier
Um,
is one of them, and then the
is it
hybridization Mustanginus.
Yeah,
Mustang grape.
yeah, I would say Mustangensis or
Mustang.
but now I hear people calling it candicans, or and
Yeah,
I want to call it candy cane, the candy cane variety.
I know. I'm
Um,
with you too. I grew up.
um,
Mustang grapes were like the native grape that I had in Oklahoma growing up, and
right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
they were. Yeah, they're not that delicious, but they're.
No, no, you need to definitely do some breeding work to
Yeah,
get it. But Berlandieri, I hear, can be really good. Actually, just like some, I don't know if you've ever eaten it, but
no, I don't
I've
think
heard.
so.
And I don't know if I've told you that. Have I told you about this non-vinifera wine that I had? That I mean, I just want to point this out that it was a blend of pure Vitis californica, so 6 different grapes: Vitis californica, Vitis jordiana, Vitis arizonica, Vitis monticola, Vitis riparia, and Vitis labrusca. Um, those
It was
six
a genetic
grapes,
blend or like a juice blend.
that was like they picked those grapes, crushed them all together, and fermented them into wine.
Cool.
And I just drank it this January, and it was, I think, vinted in 21. So, it had 5 years of age, or 22 maybe. Zero vinifera in it. Was absolutely, could have blind tasted anyone in the world. I mean, it was drunk at a table of, I mean, like Eric Asimov and, like people like that were at the table. Everyone loved it. I mean, it was just a beautiful wine. Like, not, no equivocation, no anything, no like caveats, just a beautiful wine. And I'm just like, we have no idea like what the potential of our native grapes is, first of all. So anyway, it's a slight tangent, but Monticola being one of these grapes that was in it, I hear can be tasty. But maybe it was the blend. I don't know what was like dominant in that. I mean, I don't know.
Mhm.
Nobody I've heard. I know people make wine with like now I know somebody was making wine with or growing vines of Californica, but I know somebody making wine with pure Riparia, and I've only ever heard of Berlandieri being like a good wine all by itself. But I've never heard, like Labrusca's got a lot going on. I mean, it can make something good, I guess, but um, it's usually like most people are using it in other stuff, like crossed with other things. But
Yeah,
I don't
I've
know, like,
never had Californica bottling, and I was super surprised by like it was definitely
right.
high acid, low tannin, but it was good. Like I would drink it. Especially, it's so funny too because I think we've talked about this before. Like the natty kids, they are the ones that should be pushing hard for hybrids because like the flavors that they will tolerate, like
Yeah.
like hybrids are much cleaner than a lot of those things, and they have like such good flavor potential, especially if you're trying to make like a pet nat and
Yeah.
things like that. Like they're just like tailor made to it. But like you want a really good chillable red, Vitus Californica is solid for that.
Nice.
Like
Nice.
I would
Okay.
do that all day.
Nice. And it's kind of light too, right? Like it
It's
makes
like
a lighter. Yeah. It's not a Tinturia, right?
mm-mm.
Yeah, that's unlike so many other of the Eastern grapes. Um, okay, so yeah, I guess the point is, one of the things that I suggested recently was that we should like incentivize more breeding programs in California for this. But maybe we should just, you know, work with Texas. And I mean, we should, not maybe, like we should work with all the universities across the South, and California should be working together. But also, I think like we just need more. Like I think we need more genetics in our wine crops. Like I think we
No,
need more people
we need
breeding
more
them.
backyard breeders. I mean, like
Yeah, we do.
if
We
you
do.
waited for the university to come up with the coolest peony, you'd be waiting a long time.
That's
But then
right.
you have these like dedicated peony enthusiasts that are just like, and irises, like all of the like, there's all the flower breeders are just so dedicated to like
Yeah.
creating that super perfect flower that only they have. But you don't really have that in grapes, and that has a lot to do with I think Psalm culture too,
Yeah.
because they've already kind of decided what the
What's
best
cool?
ones are and what's
Yeah.
worthy.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah. I
don't,
think
I don't know
I
what
mean
up there is.
my
Honestly. They
so,
should be
so,
excited about new stuff,
yeah, I mean my well, they just spent a lot of time like
learning it.
memorizing a bunch of crap, you know what I mean? And
Look
now
at the
they have to
cannabis
like
culture. Like
say
they
what?
they want triple sugar cookie, Girl Scout, orange sherbet, and then like that's so rad and everybody wants it, and then the next week they don't want that again. They want the next new genetics. It's such a funny different culture where grapes, like I mean even apples evolve, like
Yeah.
Honeycrisp was good, but now the Cosmic Crisp is out, like goodbye Honeycrisp. Like
Nice. Yeah. No, I mean, and that's like, and you see that in the grocery store, right? But like, there's tons of stuff being developed now, but you like it doesn't like all of a sudden Cabernet isn't like shelved next to Cabernet Noir. You know what I mean? Like, or
Mhm.
Cabertine, or like the new things that are coming out that are like that are, just like that, Honey Crisp and Cosmic Crisp. That it's probably they just crossed Honeycrisp with something else and renamed it because it's got all, really similar flavors but different enough to be something fun and new. And yeah, like
I
it
think
is there's a weird, like, we've gotten the weird cul-de-sac that we're in. It's changing though. I mean, like, I think
it,
California is actually falling behind, and this is you're probably a great person to bring this up with, but say what you're going to say.
no, no. I just say I think that sometimes the way that wine is like used in culture is almost like a legacy reinforcement or like status
Yes.
reinforcement, and that
Yeah.
has very little to do with change, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of the biggest thing that wine comes up against when trying to bring in new varietals is the way that it's often weaponized is as a cultural reinforcement tool, not
Yeah, like
as something to
class and
bring people
status
around
thing.
the table that to you know bring it closer. And wine's it's biting wine in the ass right now. Honestly, that
Yep, it
problem.
really is. I mean, I think that's what I see as the biggest. I mean, because people can say whatever they want. Da, 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 like, I know there's been a million articles about like what's wrong with wine, but yeah, I think you're pointing out the thing. Like, I just like that. I don't think we care about that anymore, and it just doesn't need to be that. Like, and nobody cares, and it's like, elitism is out. That is, nobody gives a shit, and actually we actively dislike it, and we
Well,
want.
we're like losing market share to watermelon White Claw. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
like what
yeah.
the fuck.
Which makes a lot of sense to me, honestly. That sounds delicious in a weird way. um I well, yeah. All of this is related to grape breeding to me. Like, I think what we need to do is depopularize winemakers and somms, who I think have had this disproportionate like celebrity status for far too long, because they are just work. It's sort of like this is maybe not the best analogy, but like, I came out of screenwriting and worked at the Writers Guild in Los Angeles for many years, and the whole vibe of being a writer in Hollywood is like, anyway, the point is, like, I worked in this business where we were like, we are creating the content, and directors get, like, literally get the biggest credit. Like everybody celebrates them. Like, if you go to IMDb right now, like the Internet Movie Database, or if you look on any like movie poster, you'll see the director and like little tiny script. If you're lucky, there'll be like the screenwriter, and it's like the director would, and the actors who are the stars would literally have nothing to do if it weren't for the writer, right? Like this. Anyway, I'm like channeling the energy that comes from that, and I'm sort of like, I don't think it's exactly analogous, but I mean, my point is, like, the grape breeders and the viticulturists like yourself are the ones that give winemakers and somms jobs. And yes, sales is really important, and like, you guys wouldn't have jobs if the wine didn't sell. It's a community. Like, we all need each other, right? Like, I'm not trying to pit people against each other.
It's a community. I would say that it would be nice. It would be nice, not necessarily if the winemakers would share the spotlight, but if they would just be a little bit more
Yeah.
honest. It's always been like a little bit of an issue, but like in Napa, it's pretty pronounced. Like the winemakers here, like they're pretty sure that they farm the grapes themselves. It's
Yeah.
pretty funny, actually. They are all farmers, and when when they're out on the road, when they're doing sales, they made all the shots. They called all the shots. I mean, and it is an interesting thing, to see
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
piece of it uh,
Yeah.
so pronounced. Um, I get it though for
Yeah.
sales, but then I think they start
Yeah.
to believe it too. That's that's when it gets funny.
But I do think, like, it doesn't have to be like, I mean, I think a grape breeder like it's unlikely, but I think what we need is a great breeder who's a great salesperson as well. Like who can do the work.
Well, I think
Say again.
you know, you'd have to be to get any new genetics off the mark, or like on the market in a reasonable way. You'd have to be good at sales, and you'd have to be a super effective communicator, because like it's an uphill battle in grapes to get somebody to even to plant something that's like already in an established vinifera that's not Cab Sauv, like that. You'll get an article written by Spectator, about how you're like
I
a
know it's so
pioneer
ridiculous.
because
Like,
you
oh
planted a 1,500 year
yeah,
old
I,
grape
I mean,
variety.
I cannot, like, I just have to say, like, guys, don't plant another obscure vinifera variety. Like, you're not solving any problems. Like, it's just a niche flying up your own asshole. Like, plant a new thing that actually is unique to where you are. Like, plant something with genetics that are native to where you are that resist Pierce's disease and powdery mildew and whatever else you have going on there. Like, uh,
I keep telling people I was talking to a PR company about stories that would get attention, for a winery I was at. And I was like, what would steal every single headline is if we took a hybrid seriously at a luxury winery and we planted an acre of it. I was like, that's an interesting
yes.
story. And even the PR company was like, absolutely, that'd be so easy for us to sell, because people are looking for original content. And at some point, somebody is going to be like, yeah, maybe let's do it. Let's plant
Yeah.
an acre of this and figure out how to sell it to your club members. And I think the easiest story is these genetics are from here. Grapes exist all around the world, and most cultures have developed
Right.
what was there. And America hasn't, but
I
we're doing
mean,
it. We're the
I'm
pioneers.
just
Just
going to
take the
put this
credit
out there.
and
There
just
is
do
an
it.
opportunity for somebody in California to produce literally the first California wine. Literally. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
and
don't know why somebody
do it.
hasn't thought about that and isn't capitalizing on that. I mean, yeah. And once that happens, like, I mean, I just see the dominoes falling, like, I mean, like, yeah, anyway, but I don't, I mean, and it's happening like this, so this is what I was going to say, coming back to one of the points I was going to make about, I mean, related to Pierce's disease, but the bigger issue of like us not using our own genetics, which is we're now importing grapes that like the Germans and Swiss and French are breeding with our genetics that like we took over there a century and a half ago, and now they're sending back to us as their grapes that we're paying royalties on to them.
Yeah, we're paying
Yeah,
royalties. That's my favorite part,
yeah,
is that we're paying royalties on them. It is funny because if you talk to people that know anything about these new varieties, they're much more interested
yep,
in these
yep.
European
Yeah,
hybrids
well, because
than
they're
the
doing more of
American
it. There's
varieties.
more varieties coming out every year there. I mean, like, it's like yeah, don't get me.
Well, I think they also have a different, um, you know, like sometimes there's like a really good singer in your hometown, and everybody's like, oh yeah, saw her at the state fair, she's pretty good,
Yeah,
you know she's all right, like, but she's no so and so. And then that girl leaves that small town, goes to Nashville, and suddenly she's the on every Billboard chart. And it's like the old saying, Jesus never preached
right,
in his
right.
hometown. Like, you're just like, but in Germany, like they're like, obviously they love their Riesling, and even France does breed a lot of breeding work. Like, they're not scared to bring in other genetics and try new things, because like they're like, whatever, Pinot's from Burgundy, they're like, oh yeah, it's like, we love it, we're
Well,
proud
the
of it,
French are
it's
furthest
fine.
behind in Europe, I would say. They're probably the most stuck in that same in their, stuck up their own variety uh thing.
Yeah. That's weird for French to be that way.
But no, I mean, it's kind of remarkable how, I mean, yeah, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, there's like I mean, there's a private breeder and like, that I interviewed in Catalonia. It's like, I mean, there's just so much happening there. And yeah, and England is adopting it because they know how hard it is to grow there. Not as much, but like it's in their stores. Like they'll see some of these varieties that are new varieties in their stores. You know, in the what, I forget what the store is in England. Anyway, I guess my point is just that I've, you know, like we're missing out. We're falling behind. And part of that is just because it's so easy to grow grapes in California, but the other part is, and that has led to, you know, just like what's the word, like a lackadaisical attitude about it, like a yeah, anyway. um but Pierce's disease, bringing it back around, I think has awakened the need and the urgency to do this, and the opportunity. Like, I mean, yes, it's urgent. Yes, this is like, you know, people will potentially lose millions of dollars if you know, something isn't done about Pierce's disease. But the the things that we can do, there's some really amazing ecological things that we can do that don't involve giving cash to herbicides and pesticides that are just going to make the world hotter, which is going to further increase the range of Pierce's disease insects and make the problem bigger. And yeah, I mean, it kind of stems from our actions and us like making bad decisions agriculturally, and maybe we just make better decisions rather than doubling down on the bad ones.
and don't wait for other people to fix it. I swear we need to
I
crowdsource
agree.
breeding.
I agree.
Like everything should be like just start planting things from seed. It's okay if you don't have the best clone or cultivar from what you're doing, but like that it does take years and years and years to do it that way. But like it's okay to just like plant a
Yeah.
grape seed, like or to maybe get a little bit better and do some pollen transfer
Yeah.
yourself. And like I just feel like we need to take it out of academia
Yep.
a little bit because it is such a big issue, and just crowdsource it. And if you have something that happens to be good, that awesome, that's great, and maybe it'll make its way out there in the world. We do have better ways to breed now because we can just like read the genes and see if it has the genes that we
Yes.
think we want, key on
It
the
can
things we
speed
want for
up,
it.
and that, I mean,
Um,
I to that point, like I have a real issue with the way Davis approaches the breeding of their new varieties that they want to release, because they have a stated you know, objective of maximizing the vinifera genetics in the varieties that they release, which to me is, yeah, I mean, both absurd. Well, it's like not both. It's three things. It's absurd. It's
Also,
a
like
missed opportunity,
they're
and it's
trying
sort
to
of like a genetic chauvinism. It's just it's weird. It's like it's creepy. If you know, like to me, it's like, you know, it's like
they're beholden to their donors, though. Like if they're like, I have a
I guess
feeling it'd be pretty hard to get some money for research if you're like, I want to make Vitis californica the next Cab Sauv. I'm sure a lot of people would be like, "That's cool, bro," and then like walk on because it is
I don't
not like
know. I don't know.
it's not
Like
what people
I
think
mean,
they want.
maybe, but like I also think like all you have to say is like we're going to solve your biggest problems, you know, and it's going to taste great. We're not limiting how we're going to get to that, you know, like we might end up with,
Yeah, it's weird to limit
yeah,
the
it's
the
like we
approach.
don't have to back, like if we end up with like a 50-50 cross with an F1 cross that's like delicious and has all the resistance genes, we like, why are we going to keep back crossing? Like that just takes more time, and you guys need solutions now. Like we're going to give you this delicious solution right away. And like you know, and who gets to decide? Like it's like saying there's an objective quality measurement that comes with greater genetics. And I just think that there's not even a logical way to make that make sense, let alone like an actual scientific or genetic way to make that make sense. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's so, yeah. Anyway,
We're also like it's interesting too because we're hunting down genes that are already
yeah,
expressed, in these plants, and we don't even know what the genetic potential is for resistant in these things because I mean, not every gene that is in a chromosome
Right.
is expressed, you know, like, and so there could be everything. I mean, look at the natural, like Arizonica, right? Like something in it, in that genome helped it figure out how to reduce biofilm
Right.
formation, right? And it just kind of, the vines that happened to double down on that gene, they made it a little bit longer into the future. And like I just think that, yeah, I like throwing half of, or more than that, 97% of the genetic pool away because we want to retain the vinifera is a little silly, because we don't even know the fruiting potential
Yeah.
of these
And
natives, you know, or the fruit, the phenolic potential and tannin potential. Most of them are pretty low tannin, so we kind of threw it out. But tannin expression isn't a gene, you know. Like we
yeah.
could double down on that. There's
Yeah,
we gave up
and
too
there's
early
so much
in this
potential. Yeah,
first
there's and like, I mean, really, it's you mentioned all that, and I mean, I think I brought this up to you where it's like, not only are there those unexpressed genes, but like we know that there's a whole huge chunk of the genome that we don't understand. And I mean, just like with the human genome, like like we can minimize it. They call it like junk DNA and stuff like that. But it's like, that just means I'm ignorant. It's
That's your
literally
other
like a
term.
cocky scientist way of saying I'm ignorant, but I don't want to say I'm ignorant. They just say, well, say
Oh, it's
what?
trash.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
don't need it.
Right, right.
It's
It's
trash.
like that dismissiveness, I think, inherent to this idea as well. And it's like, thinking like, yes, we know certain things are effective, but the stuff that we don't understand is what's really interesting to me, and like how they might support those effective genes or be other cocktails of support genes that support resistance to various things. um that to me is like, and when you just start, especially, and this is my problem with GMO too, is like when you just throw away everything except what you know, and also you're breeding with an egotistical objective, like we want Cabernet flavors but we want powdery mildew resistance, so I'm just going to splice that in. Like, you're just missing out. Like, again, there's just like, I am sure that the world, like, you'd have to get lucky for that thing to last very long, is what my feeling is about it, because it's, yeah, I think you need sex. I think sex is a really important part of life. Frankly.
Yeah. We need more
Yes.
clusterfuck. That's for sure.
Yes. And yeah, I don't know. I don't want to keep you forever, but this is great. You made me think of something, but now I forgot it, and that's happened 3 times now.
I didn't even tell you my Pierce disease
Oh, do
joke.
tell. Can you tell it?
Well, it's not going to probably make its way onto the podcast because it takes less. I actually was reading where they first located Pierce's disease, and it was actually in
Uh-huh.
Southeast Texas at a Claire's in the mall.
Eclairs?
Didn't work. At a Claire's in the mall. It's not going to make the podcast. It's a piercing disease. The piercing shop
Uh,
in the mall. God, my dad.
uh,
I got the groan. That's all I wanted.
that's an earring shop or something.
Claire's? Have you
Somebody
never?
will
You don't
get
know what
it.
a
Somebody will
Claire's
get it.
is? Oh,
No, I don't.
no, nobody will get it. It's fine. I got to workshop it.
um, yeah, there's something there. Yeah, there's just not like maybe like a national well-known chain of a piercing parlor, sadly, or it would work really well.
I think Claire's is the one, but I don't know if it ever made
Oh,
it over
okay.
the Rockies.
That's a Claire's? Eclairs?
No,
Claire's. Oh,
just
Claire's.
Claire's. Anyway, well, it's good talking to you. I got to go put out fires now.
Yeah,
Not actual
thankfully.
ones, but
Well,
emotional.
thanks so much, Drew. Makes this subject fun, and yeah, I mean, again, the amount of knowledge that you shared that like I wasn't even expecting was fantastic. I really appreciate it. So thanks, and yeah, like, they're
Oh,
lucky to have you. We're
my
lucky to have
pleasure.
you in California. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People in California. I have no friends. Find me.
yeah, and breeders who want to do some cool projects and want to collaborate and do some private whatever GoFundMe, like, we should all talk as well. Yeah.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for supporting those of you who subscribe and share and make it possible for me to continue to do this. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to support, you can easily do that by subscribing at beyondorganicwine.substack.com. Thank you so much, and a big thanks to Colden Pro for some beautiful new closing music.